It was a very, very busy street. Not, I wouldn't say a huge shopping street, but you would have had, in our time, between here and Gladstone Street, say you had the post office, you had Harvey's Penny Bank, you had Hugh Lupus, the bookmakers, you had the 3 banks in the street, you had 3 butchers, you had O'Brien's, Kevin O'Gorman, God rest his soul, and his family, and you had Bowes at the other end of it. And you must have had several of the prominent solicitors in town at the time. Like Peter O'Connor was there, is now in Adelphi Quay, and you had Dr. Coonahan, and you had the Halleys in Georgia Street. So there was a huge variety of businesses. You had about 3 lots of printing works there, between Harvey's in Georgia Street, you had Croker's in O'Connell Street, you had the News and Star, and you would hear the machines clattering away. You have certain evenings they'd be printing the local paper, and the Munster Express were very advanced kind of printers all their life. Mr. Welch was always a man investing his profits back into the business, you know. Next, remember, just beyond the City Cycle, on the corner where you turn up, the Blue Haven, that was Eddie Harney's pub, and Jim Brennan bought it off him, yeah. And you had the City Cycle, and they were the 2 Griffins, Biddy, God rest her soul, and Betty. She's still alive in Slievrew, Hale and Harty, I believe. They ran the cycle shop all my life anyway, and they had a man called Mr. Patridge, God rest his soul. He used to repair the bicycles out the back. And next to him then you had an elderly man called Dick Phelan from Bilberry, and he ran a tobacconist shop there with his sister-in-law, Miss Parker. And he had already sold that pub to Eddie Harney back in the early 50s, I think, you know. And then you had Jimmy Grant and his wife, caught, 2 of them are passed away. They ran a grocery shop there next to Bowes, the butchers. And he did a kind of a van delivery. He was a kind of a mobile shop. They never stopped working. They were lovely people. Bowes were a very big concern in our time. And part of their premises was used for cannery, where they used to make can the meat, send it off to the British Army. And also, Denny's were also sending off the meat to the British Army. You know the big house at the end of the street where it is used for adult education, it's kind of defunct now, they've moved down the road. That was part of it. That was the house, and they had the granary, or the cannery working there for many years in that.
So that was Denny's house?
That was Denny's house. And it was I have to try and remember the name of the man who, Major, do you remember Dr. Kehoe lived above in Lisdogan? Himself and his wife, he was married to a Denny, but they had no family, and that kind of died out then, the end of it. But Denny's were in O'Connell Street till 1912, and when they moved to the new site in Morgan Street. The little man called Mr. Quinn, he always said he was the last standing man. I think of his name now in a minute. Andy Quinn, God rest his soul, that had worked in Denny's in O'Connell Street, and he was still alive when Denny's in the Glen closed, you know, or in Morgan Street closed.